So I was at a friend's house tonight making plans towards our wedding in a month, and I didn't actually end up watching this game. We kind of got a little drunk. But I've had late night McDonald's and I watched the Blue Jays in 30, so let's do this thing. 10 nugget meal with fries and a Coke Zero and sweet and sour sauce, in case you're wondering. I'm a little basic like that. And what better way to celebrate the introduction of the John Schneider era of Blue Jays baseball? Yeah, that's right, Charlie Montoyo has been shown the door. And from all indications, this was something that was in the works for at least a week before the Seattle series. My goodness. It now appears as if most of the Blue Jays media knew this kind of thing was coming and just didn't report on it. I guess because most of them work for the same company that owns the Blue Jays. That's a little troubling in its own right, isn't it? But there were plenty of indications that this was a foregone conclusion, that management was done with him more than a week ago, that the room was done with him before the Seattle series, that there was nothing about last night's game that was the tipping point, especially because, they won, even though there were a couple of dodgy decisions, but whatever, they won. Add to that, John Schneider, the bench coach and now manager of the Blue Jays, is a highly regarded character throughout Major League Baseball. Odds were pretty good he was going to be offered a manager position somewhere in the offseason, and if the Blue Jays wanted to keep him, they needed to elevate him to actual Blue Jays manager, which they've now done. It's not clear whether or not this is the timing anyone had envisioned, but, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? Well, whatever. I had said that the Blue Jays need to do something to try to decide whether or not they're going to salvage this season or not. This isn't exactly what I had in mind, and I hope this isn't all they're going to do. I really hope they are going to try to find some talent outside the organization. A starting pitcher would be fabulous, but this is not nothing, so I'll take it. It does indicate a sign of life in the general manager's office and a desire to actually save this season. So we'll take those as good things. We'll say, thanks for the memories, Charlie. You're somehow a 500 manager, despite the fact that you were managing for most of a rebuild, so good job on that. And move forward in the John Schneider era, which began tonight with the second game of a quick 2-game series against Philadelphia. One last closing note about Charlie before I move on to the game tonight. I don't necessarily think Charlie Montoyo was a bad manager. I don't think he was good or anything, but I think that he had many skills that you look to your manager to have, particularly the ability to manage personalities in a clubhouse. There's a lot of egos in Major League Baseball, just like all professional sports. When you get to that highest level, no one gets to the highest level without believing that they are the best of the best. And by getting there, they've proven that they are, in fact, the best of the best. Plenty of players reach that pinnacle without losing that team spirit, that esprit de corps. But a lot of guys do. A lot of guys maybe never had it in the first place and saw no reason to develop it because they kept being the best and kept being elevated everywhere they went. So trying to massage egos and try to get everyone to pull the rope in the same way is a difficult task, and that's something I think Charlie was actually half decent at. It seemed that everyone, even now when everyone can see very clearly that he failed, that he didn't have what it takes to lead this team to the next level, even in those moments, it seems like everyone in the room had good things to say about Charlie. Everybody liked him personally. He just wasn't what the team needed right now. And I think that is a success in and of itself. I really think that is not that common of an ability. You look at guys like Joe Madden, who was recently fired, and tons of other managers in the scrap heap of history who did not have that ability, were not able to manage personalities. So Charlie, I think, is a guy who will resurface. We will see him again. As a bench coach, certainly, maybe even as a manager somewhere else. I can totally see that happening, especially if Major League Baseball goes through with its plan of expansion in the next few years. Charlie Montoyo being a 500 manager with multi-years of experience at the Major League level, that's not nothing. But it should also be pointed out that Charlie Montoyo was no great tactical shakes. His use of the bullpen was questionable. His dragging Yusei Kikuchi in the media multiple times seemed to have no real benefit and just be a terrible tactical decision. He had a couple of questionable uses of the replay that you only get one failure, right? As soon as you fail, all of a sudden you don't have a replay for the rest of the game, and there are several points, including last night's game, where that came into play. Now, in last night's game, the Blue Jays ended up winning anyway, but so maybe it's a moot point. But as a manager, there's only so much you can really do to impact each individual game. And because of that, and because you have time to think about it before you have to make the call, you pretty much need to make those calls 100% correctly. There's very little margin of error that's acceptable as a manager because it's not based on athletic skill or making time-sensitive decisions. You have like 10, 15, 20, 25 seconds to decide whether or not you're going to ask for a replay. You need to get that right 100% of the time because you have the benefit of guys checking for you first. Using a replay when you shouldn't have, that's pretty close to inexcusable. So, thanks for the memories, Charlie. Turns out you were pretty good, but not good enough at your job, especially because it seems that John Schneider was making all the tactical decisions for you anyway, which, now that I think about it, any tactical error that was made was actually John Schneider, and he's the guy who has the job now, so we didn't actually improve in that regard. Well, whatever. Game 1 of the new era. Here we go. And in Game 1, Blue Jays win 8-2 in the final game of a 2-game set against the Philadelphia Phillies. Yeah, this looks like the team I thought they were. First of all, Ross Stripling, holy hell, what a great job he did. 7 innings of shutout ball against a very dangerous lineup. Yes, they're missing some of their key bats, but they have plenty of their key bats too. And outside of Bryson Stott home run, because like this guy, like his numbers coming into this series were not impressive, but he had a couple of home runs in the series, so good for him. But outside of that, the whole pitching staff was great, and Stripling in particular, 7 shutout innings. For a guy who is supposed to be a fill-in, who's basically a long man in the bullpen, masquerading as a starter, boy, he has done some yeoman work and better. He now is approaching a 3 even ERA. Pretty good. I don't know how sustainable that is, but man, I think this was his last start before the All-Star game, so he has tons of time to rest up, get his vitality back before he has to go back out there again. I could see a world where he goes 7 innings maybe in his next start, too. This is insane value for a guy like him. He's going to get paid in the offseason. I don't know whether the Blue Jays are going to be the guys to pay him, but either way, he'll have earned every penny. He's having a great year. But I have talked about the guys who are the top 4 hitters in the lineup. Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, Hernandez. Those are the 4 guys who have slumped the hardest in the first half of Charlie Montoyo's Blue Jays in 2022. And guess who showed up to lead the party this time around? Bo Bichette had an RBI single. Vlad Guerrero Jr. had one of the most ridiculous home runs I've ever seen in my life. He hit a pop fly, one-handed, that he reached for on a breaking ball that had no oomph behind it whatsoever. He somehow hit it out with one hand. Like, he's down there, like, kind of, just serving it to left center field. Not even, like, against the foul pole. Like, to left center field. And the thing went out. That's ridiculous. That'll never happen again. I hope he doesn't think he can do that on the regular now. I mean, on the one hand, if he can do that on the regular, yes, I hope that he knows that and rocks that exploit forever. But I think it's far more likely this is some kind of weird fluke of physics and it can never happen again. So maybe this isn't something to reach for, Vlad, just as... whatever, man. Hit the home runs. I love that. That's great. But that's fucking weird, man. That's strange. But Teo, 2 two-run home runs in this one to lead the offense and provide everything the Blue Jays would need to win. Everything else was just for padding of the stats. But the 2 home runs were absolutely vital. Great job, Teo. The best part about them, they were to right center field. Exactly where we want him to be aiming when he's using his power like that. That's classic Teoscar Hernandez. Hitting it to right field and right center field, that's what I'm talking about. If he can keep doing that, he's going to rebound quite nicely in the second half. And that is a big, big piece, because if Teo is swinging it, that means you suddenly need to throw better pitches, not like the one he got tonight, to Vlad, which in turn means you have to throw better pitches to Bo. In a real way, Teoscar Hernandez can be the straw that stirs the drink on this team, and it's enticing to think that maybe he's getting back to his old self. But then again, I've thought that before in this season, and then he just cools right off again, so who knows anything, right? So, great work from Stripling, great work from Hernandez, more than enough offense to sweep a mini 2-game series, and then Kansas City comes into town short 10 players. Yeah, that's right, 10 players on the Kansas City Royals decided that they didn't need to get vaccinated. I guess when you live in Kansas City and there's like 4 people per square mile, I guess you're not as worried about infectious diseases as other places. And most disastrously, it's like all of Kansas City's good players, like Brady Singer, Andrew Benintendi, the artist formerly known as Whit Merrifield. I mean, these are the guys who are not vaccinated. It's the young guys, the mediocre guys, the middling guys. Those guys bothered to do it. But anyone who makes more than like $10 an hour in Kansas City decided to not get vaccinated. It's baffling to me. I don't understand it. But whatever. We got a not very good Kansas City team that is now missing several of its okayest players. So, I'm not saying we need to sweep. I'm saying we need to sweep. I don't know why I lied to you just then. I am saying we need to sweep. Because as of now, the Blue Jays are 5 games over 500. That's a little bit more comfortable. But if we were to go into the All-Star break at 9 games over 500, I think everyone would feel a little better about the way this last couple of weeks has gone. It wouldn't go all the way to erasing the damage of that 1-9 stretch, but it would go a long way towards that. I think we all felt over the 1-9 stretch that a change had to come, that something had to give, that the way the team was currently arrayed simply wasn't acceptable. And they had to wait, I guess, until after Budzinski's daughter's funeral was over before they could let Charlie go, because they weren't going to be like, you're fired, now let's all go mourn Budzinski's daughter's death. That doesn't seem right? That doesn't seem like a thing anybody would do. But the firing of a manager mid-season is such a mercurial thing. It's really unclear where the die is going to land on that one. With Philadelphia, the team we just took 2 games from, they fired Joe Girardi very early into the season and have since had their season rebound quite nicely. They're in the thick of the fight, above 500, in a way that they simply weren't with Girardi around. So they could say that worked for them insofar as it can, because the manager isn't actually on the field doing the thing, right? On the other hand, Joe Madden got fired as manager of the Angels because the Angels started to free fall. And after he got fired, the free fall got worse, like way worse. Like now the Angels are way out of it, definitely not going to make the playoffs, and are going to have a hard time convincing Shohei Ohtani that he can re-sign there, because even with 2 of the best players on the planet on the team, they're not even close to competitive. So there's that aspect of it. And how much impact did the firing of the manager have on those 2 things? I mean, the Angels were already terrible for an extended period of time, hence the firing, and then they continued to be terrible. So an argument can be made that it didn't change anything at all. I mean, it feels like it got worse after that, but no, it seems like it's about the same, really. And with Philadelphia, I mean, is it possible that they were just riding a really cold streak and that a team with the talent level that the Phillies have was bound to turn it around no matter who the manager was? Yeah, there's an argument to be made for that. So I honestly don't know what kind of impact Charlie's leaving and Schneider being elevated is going to have on the Blue Jays. But I do know that Schneider was the manager of the Buffalo Bisons when Vlad and Bo and Cavan et al. Were down there. So as soon as they got promoted, so too did Schneider. He got promoted to being the bench coach at the big league level. So in a way, he's their manager. He's their guy, and they're his guys. Will this feel more like a coming home, like being put into a more comfortable environment where you know exactly what to expect for those AAA Bison guys? Maybe. It doesn't seem like it should have that much of an impact, but then again, I'm not in the room. I don't know what the experience living day-to-day with Charlie Montoyo was like, and I don't know what the experience of living with John Schneider day-to-day is like, but Vlad and Bo and Cavan do. If they feel better about the situation, if they're more comfortable and more productive, more to the point, then this will have worked. I think that has to be where you look at where the impact of this firing is going to be felt. If this doesn't bring out the best in Vlad and Bo and Cavan and Teo and George and these guys who have slumped for much of the season, if these guys don't revert to their true talent levels that we know that they have, this gambit will seem to have been a failure. But if it works, if those guys go back to being those guys and they have the whole second half to perform at the levels to which that we have grown accustomed, not getting their numbers back up to the point where they're even with what we expect, because then they'd have to play above their normal level to drag their deflated numbers up. I'm not even talking about that. I mean, if we just isolate their performance from Montoyo's firing on, and they look the same as what we expected in 2020 and 2021, this is a success. If that doesn't happen, it's a failure. Because as I said, managers have a limited ability to impact the actual game in terms of tactics. So the best way for John Schneider to impact winning and losing for the Blue Jays is getting the best out of those top 4 guys in the lineup. Charlie wasn't able to do that. He wasn't able to get the best or anything out of Yusei Kikuchi. He wasn't able to get the best out of Jose Barrios sometimes, but usually not. He wasn't really able to get the most out of the bullpen because I think they still have more to give. So if John Schneider was already making all the tactical decisions, we can't expect much of an improvement there. All we can look to is an improvement on the stars who were underperforming. The guys who we were counting on to be the backbone of a team that I naively thought could win 100 games. It's still possible to do that, but exceedingly unlikely, so I'm not even looking at that anymore. I'm just looking for John Schneider to bring out the best in these guys who've been slumping for the first half of the season or so. But all that remains to be seen, and it's 3:15 in the morning, so that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you very much for watching this channel. Like and subscribe, etc. Kansas City comes to town severely shorthanded, so we'll see if the Blue Jays can take advantage of that situation while they're still feeling some kind of way about this whole John Schneider situation. So we'll see what happens there. I will see you tomorrow.